much for accepting my invitation for this interview. I really appreciate it because I know that you are the person who knows most about menstrual cups out of all the people I know, and I know quite a few people in the women's health business and industry. And I know that you have manufactured not only pessaries, but also menstrual cups. So you really, really know a lot about them. And I have a lot of questions to ask you because, it's a seemingly very simple product to use, a menstrual cup, but once you start looking into it, there is quite a little bit that can be discovered to make sure that it's used the best possible way. So I'd like to start by asking you, who is a great candidate for a cup use? Is it for everybody, or should I ask who is it not for?
Okay, well, thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure being interviewed by you, Kathi, so thank you. Right, so it really is a personal choice. That's like saying to somebody who's an ideal candidate for a tampon. I know a lot of 14-year-olds who are already using cups from a personal point, and this is just a personal point. I would like to see kids a little bit older than that being, having something inside the vagina because, they're still developing and they're still growing. But, again, you've got some 14-year-olds who bleed particularly heavy for whatever reason. And this can be extremely distressing for these kids. So on that basis, a cup is sort of safe and they can use it all day as well. So I'd say, looking at the statistics from the age of 14 upwards, candidates then who are not suitable, there's a whole list of them, and I think as a woman, let's say with pelvic organ prolapses, endometriosis, all sorts of things like this, they really have to try it, and if they don't get on with it, then they know that isn't the product for them.
Yeah, so can women with IUD use them?
Yeah, I get asked this quite a lot. So I've got a menstrual cup here, and this is called the Bell Cup. So there's so many different shapes on the market. There's also ones out there which look like a disc, which almost replicate like a diaphragm. So those can be used effectively as well. The main thing, the really important thing that you have to think about is that once the cup is in place, there are certain cups that sit below the cervix, but 9 times out of 10 with movement, these cups will sort of work their way up to the cervix. So you must break the seal. If you don't break the seal, what can happen is that you're going to drag the organs down, and in very rare cases where they haven't broken the seal, if the IUD has been misplaced or it's really on coming down towards the entrance, then it can sort of bring it out. But I think that I've only heard of one case where that's happened. What the reason was behind there, I really don't know. But yes, to answer your question, they are perfectly safe to use if you have an IUD.
Oh, that's good. How about for virgins? I know it must be, we talked about 14-year-olds, and certainly kids can be sexually active at a very young age, but can virgins use a menstrual cup?
Oh, gosh. Yes, as long as, there's a lot of religions out there as well that insist that the hymen is still intact by the time they're getting married. Don't forget that girls who are doing gymnastics, they can break the hymen anyway. So that's, that's one thing. It can be quite painful for a virgin to a young virgin to put the cup in. And also don't forget, if you're already stressed with putting something in the vagina, all of a sudden the pelvic floor muscles are going to contract, which is going to make it even more difficult. Now, if you're a virgin, let's say at the age of 20 plus, then I don't see any problems. Just relax before putting the cup in. And it takes practice. It takes about 4 or 5 goes before you start getting the hang of it.
So we mentioned pelvic organ prolapse. So can women with prolapse use a cup, or are there some women with a certain type of prolapse that can accommodate a cup?
Yeah, so pelvic organ prolapse is the descent of the pelvic organs, the bladder, the uterus, part of the bowel or the rectum, the urethra. So these, when they descend, if you are examined by your doctor, the doctor will give you a grade, and it'll go from a grade 1, which you hardly notice. You can be a little symptomatic at grade 1. Grade 2, then it descends lower. Grade 3 is the prolapse is outside of the introitus, or the vagina coming outside, and grade 4 is way, way outside. So for grade 3 and grade 4, then the cup wouldn't work. Not unless they've got the pessary in, which has pushed that prolapse back into its position, and then they might be able to use the cup with the pessary. But if we're just talking about somebody with a prolapse, a normal prolapse, then grade 1 or 2 wouldn't have a problem any more than grade 3. Then yes, they would have a problem with it.
Yeah, well, that was my next question. If it's a pessary. A pessary is an intravaginal device that's designed to hold sinking pelvic organs up. So my next question was, if a pessary is in place, then women can use a cup. And according to you, in some situations, this is possible.
Yeah, and again, it depends which pessary, because we've got occult pessaries, which are space-filling pessaries, like the cube, Inco Light, Inco Stress. Then the cup wouldn't be, you know, if you've got a huge blob of silicone and you're trying to put something in there, that's not going to work. Usually the menstrual cups would work well with a ring, with a dish, the Hodge, the Smith, so those that really don't take up much space in the vagina. And again, we've got mixed sort of reactions with this. We've got women who have tried the ring and the cup, and they've said no way can it work. And then we've got others which are using it month on. So it depends on your body as well. It depends on the type of prolapse. And my advice is, you know, they're not overly expensive. So just go out and try. If it works, great. If it doesn't, then you know it doesn't.
Yeah. Now, at this point, let me mention, if you'd like to find out more about pelvic organ prolapse, you can find a couple of articles on my blog space under discreetly.com.au. You can also find there an interview that we have done with Gaynor earlier about pessaries. And also Gaynor has a terrific Facebook support group called pessaries and pelvic organ prolapse. So if you have a prolapse and you'd like to explore you are using pessaries, then please go and visit her, join her Facebook group, because it's really, really terrific, very, very supportive for women. And also you can find Gaynor on her website, pelvicangel.com. I will include all the links under this interview. Okay, so how about infections? So if somebody has an acute vaginal infection, can they use a cup in that situation?
No, I would use the same rules as I would with a pessary. If you've got any infection whatsoever, first of all, find out what the origin of the infection is, then clear up the infection, and then use the product internally.
Yes. One more question regarding who this might be suitable for. For women who had pelvic floor repair surgery for prolapse or incontinence, can they use a menstrual cup?
Yeah, absolutely. As long as the rule of thumb, which the hospitals all over the world give, is that wait 6 weeks for any internal stitches to dissolve, or before you've had the stitching out, if you've had any stitching. The only thing that I would be very cautious of is the lovely ladies out there who have unfortunately endured all these problems with mesh and mesh removal. What I would say is that if these ladies are thinking about a menstrual cup, but usually at this age, their periods have stopped anyway. But just for argument's sake, if there are any bits of mesh left inside the body that are protruding out through the skin, then I would not choose a cup at all. So if you've had any surgery, again, just wait for the swelling to go down, wait for the stitches, and then you can use a cup after that. And always discuss this with your medical advisor before rushing out and just thinking, yeah, 6 weeks has passed, I can go. Always discuss, have the examination, and get the clearance from your medical advisor.
Yeah. Now, there's so many cups on the market these days. Some are really cheap and some are a little bit more expensive. So why would I spend my bucks on buying one for $30 when I can get one for $2 or $3?
Very good question. So, you know, when you buy something for, let's say, $30, then, and again, with everything, you're probably buying a genuine silicone cup. And silicone is not cheap at all. So there's where your money is, in the silicone cups. $2 or $3 is basically, I would be very suspicious if it wasn't a plastic one. Now, people think of plastic and PVC as hard. You can have a plastic cup that would replicate exactly that. And you, as the buyer, the individual, wouldn't know. What happens is that there's a chemical compound in PVC plastics called phthalates. And these phthalates, over the years, they have caused no end of problems. Going back about, I think it's 15 or 20 years ago, when I was doing some research on silicone, I came across these phthalates, and there was a sort of an announcement, let's say, where phthalates had to be reduced in toys for children. Now, I'm going off topic a little bit, so bear with me. So they found that a lot of kids, a glut of children, were developing asthma. Just, you know, we had these really healthy children, and all of a sudden they became asthmatic. What they found was that they had, these kids had these toys, and like all little kids, you know, the toys go in the mouth and everything. They found out that there were phthalates in these toys, and these can produce toxins which create asthma. Not only that, a little bit more research, and they can also create ovarian cancer. They've known to be detrimental to the liver, to the kidneys, and so the European side of the regulatory side had said that any manufacturer must not exceed X amount of phthalates. Now, phthalates are in cosmetics as well. They're even in lubricants. So again, if you're going to use a lubricant, just make sure that, you know, I personally would go for an organic lubricant, but these can cause all sorts. They're industrial chemicals at the end of the day. They're either used as a solvent in cosmetics, or they're used to soften plastic. So when you've got this, if you're going to be paying $2 or $3 or, you know, for something like this, I would really be questioning, is this real silicone? Because there are unscrupulous companies out there that say silicone when it's not silicone. The other thing as well, in the United Kingdom, these are not regulated. They're not regulated by the MHRA, which are the Medical Device Board. Now, in Canada and the States, menstrual cups are classed as a medical device, so they come under the class 2. That means that every year they get audited, they're made sure that, you know, the silicone is proper silicone. I would like to see the UK bring out these as a medical device, simply because it's protection for the user more than anything. Then if you go overseas and you're buying menstrual cups, let's say in bulk, and there are people that are going overseas, they're buying 2, 3, 4,000 of these little cups for 2 or 3 pennies, coming back, putting them in their own brand. And what I've seen on the boxes is like designed in France, designed in the UK. That doesn't mean manufactured in the UK. So if you're going to buy something for your daughter, or if you're going to buy something for yourself, then always look at the box, always question the manufacturer. If they're a decent manufacturer, they'll have no problems whatsoever sending you any certification that you ask for. Everything really has to be transparent from a manufacturing side. But if they can't give you any certification, or let's say they say, yes, it's silicone and it's not, and something happens to you, then, you know, all that falls on the manufacturer itself. So my advice, if you are thinking about setting up a business and wanting to help women, certainly at the moment in the UK, that it's big on period poverty, just think twice of where you're buying these from. This one is manufactured in the factory where the pessaries are made. The factory is regulated heavily. When I was producing them, I was regulated heavily. So I can guarantee that this is 100% silicone. Other manufacturers who are buying from overseas, you know, they really need the guarantees and the certification that it is silicone and that it doesn't contain phthalates.
That's a really, really good point, because, for example, I wouldn't be able to tell just looking at the cup if it's silicone or if it's plastic.
I wouldn't.
Yeah. So doing just a little bit of investigation, even if it's not on the box, contacting the manufacturer, that, you know, there's lots of choices on the market. So you only have to pick the right one once. You only have to find, you know, the right product, and then, you know, that lasts a long time from what I understand. How long do they last for, Gaynor? They last.
Well, silicone, and I think this is another thing as well. If you've got a plastic one, if you've got something with phthalates in, that's going to break down pretty quick. I think you're looking at between 6 months and a year where it starts to split and break down. With silicone, what they say is that you replace it every year. But to be honest, it's going to last you a lifetime if you look after it properly. Yeah, that's another telltale sign.
So when you say you look after it properly, what do you mean?
Okay, so again, this is a clear silicone. You do have ones with colours in that they've been dyed, and I'd like to say at this stage, the silicone with the colours in, the colours do not leak.
Okay.
The plastic ones with the dioxins, they will leak into the body. They will cause problems. So again, going back, make sure that it's a silicone. So if you've got a coloured silicone product, it is perfect. It's just as safe as the clear one.
Okay, good point.
So, you know, you're going to wash it every day that you use it. I hope you are. And just leave it air dry. Something that I'd like to bring up as well is that if you're going to, let's say you're in the girls' toilet and, you know, you take it out, you empty your cup, You don't take the tissue paper to wipe it, because what can happen is that the bits of fibre from the toilet paper can stick onto the silicone. Silicone is a magnet for dust. That's one of the downsides. Now, like tampons, where you've got the break off of the tiny fibres and they start to rot inside the body, that can cause toxic shock syndrome, because the rotting then it creates the staphylococcus bacteria, and that can start within 24 hours shutting down each of your organs. And I've seen it. When I was nursing, I did actually nurse a young woman who came in with toxic shock syndrome. And in 24 hours, sadly, she passed away. And again, this is why when I did my research, I wanted to be absolutely sure that the products that I produced were never going to cause any harm to anybody. So going back to toilet paper, the toilet paper is not sterile. We don't know where it's produced. We don't know what conditions it's been stored in. It's in a public toilet. God knows what germs and everything migrate into there. So if you think you're going to take this piece of toilet paper, you're going to wipe in and you're going to leave tiny little fibres that you can't see with the naked eye, and then you're putting it back inside your vagina, those fibres can latch onto the membrane of the vagina, start to rot, and it could cause, not saying guaranteed, but it could cause toxic shock syndrome. So let's eliminate everything that we can to make it safe for our girls to use these cups. So what I would suggest, if you're in a public toilet, always have a little bottle of water with you. Empty the cup, just swill it out, empty, and put it back into the vagina. That is perfectly safe, and that's the safest way to do it. Now, if you're at home, you can wash this out with a non-perfume soap. You can use an enzyme cleaner as well, but that's going a bit to the extreme, I guess, because you're not I hope you're not sharing it with anybody else. You can also boil them as well. So you don't need to boil them for more than 30 seconds. Even 10 seconds is enough.
And
so
how would you boil them?
I do it just once a week. At the end of your period, when your period's finished, boil it and then put it, store it in. We've got these little bags. You can store it in any sort of clean bag. And then when you go to use it again, don't forget to wash it first, because we don't want little fibres from bags sticking to it either.
In the microwave, does it go into the microwave? Would that desanitize it?
I get asked this a lot with pessaries as well. Now, there's no reason why you can't desanitize it in the microwave. So what you would do is you'd place it in a bowl of water, just plain water, and put it in the microwave for about 10 seconds, and then just bring it out. Just make sure, though, that you let it cool down completely before reinserting it, because microwaves heat from the inside out. Okay. So you don't want to sort of be putting that in thinking, oh, that's okay, and then all of a sudden, nice little warm fuzzy feeling going on down there.
Well, talking about insertions, can you just run through very quickly the proper way to insert and remove, please?
Okay, so again, looking at people who are particularly dry due to, I don't know, estrogen depletion or whatever, but again, if you've got that estrogen depletion, you may not have your periods, but let's cover everything. So some people may need to use a little bit of lubricant. When you've got anything silicone, only use water-based lubricants. Oil-based, they'll degrade silicone over time, and also they just don't wash off very well. So water-based lubricants, this is called the leading edge. So we put a little bit on there. And then to insert, some people like to just fold it down, so you've got that pointy edge there. So it's like a point. And then you fit it into the vagina, and then you just leave it go.
Okay. Yeah.
A lot of cups, then they'll have what's called the tail. Now, I've got this because you've got some women with a particularly long vagina, and you've got women with a particularly short vagina. So what I would do is especially women with prolapses, look to see where the level of the cervix is to the opening of the vagina. So if, let's say, the cervix is going to be here and the opening is here, we know already that this particular cup isn't going to be suitable.
Yes.
So, and there are different size cups out there. So again, it's about finding the right one, asking the manufacturer about the measurements, the width, the depth and everything. So once we've got it in, now this is literally just to sort of find it to come back out again. You can actually cut these to your desired size. So it's in, it sits in there. It can sit in for up to, I would say, 8 to 12 hours, and then remove it. And then when you bring it out, and this is the most trickiest part, because it's so important to release that seal. What we were talking earlier about the IUDs and everything, if you start tugging on this, you're going to bring everything down with it, because it really does create a suction. So with this particular one, you break the seal through just popping the bottom like that, and that will break the seal there. So I don't know if you can see, so it just opens. With some of the others, you've got to be pretty tactile as well. A lot of women sort of don't want to touch their vagina, but unfortunately with a cup you've got no choice. So you're going to get your index finger and you're just going to break the seal that way, and then you're going to bring it down gently, and then eventually, if you can get your finger over the top, and then just bring it down. Now sometimes it can be a bit messy, it depends on the amount of blood that's in there, and again, it's all about practice. It's knowing what your flow is and everything.
Yeah. Can it leak?
If it's in properly, it won't leak. If the suction is in there properly, then no, you're not going to get any leakage at all. I mean, the way that I've designed this is that nearly all the blood sits at the bottom of the bulb there, so it's not. Some of the other cups, they don't have the bulb, so they're like that. Again, if they're not sort of suctioned on properly, they can sort of tilt, and yes, they can leak.
Now, another question I've been asked a number of times is, can they stretch out the vagina?
No.
That's my answer as well, but I just want to get out there, because that is actually a question that I've been asked quite a number of times from women.
Right. No, because the vagina is very flexible.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when you think of anybody who's given birth, the size of the baby coming through the vagina doesn't stay like that, it goes back.
That's right.
So that's, and not only that, the canal there, the vaginal canal, it's no is the answer. I don't know how to answer it properly, but
that's it. Yeah, I agree, 100%. So can you think of any negative impact on vaginal tissue from long-term use of vaginal cups, or any contraindications at all?
The only one I would say is that if you've got vaginal atrophy, because vaginal atrophy is where the lining of the vagina becomes very thin. A lot of women are prescribed estrogen. So you can put your estrogen in. If you are on estrogen, put the estrogen in the vagina, leave it for about half an hour, and then put your cup in. If you do have atrophy and you're not on any sort of estrogen, what can happen is that the cup can rub and cause a little bit of irritation onto the lining. I can't think of anything offhand, any other medical conditions there that would be contraindicated, other than, and which we covered with infections. So if you've got an STD, then you might want to sort of get that cleared up before using the cup.
Now, I have a couple of questions from women, and one of them was that she's been using cups, loving the cups, except when she exercises, runs and jumps during a workout, they seem to dislodge. So what was the advice for her?
Okay, first of all, is this every single day of her period, or is it more towards the end? Because, you know, towards the end of the period, the cervix then moves into a different position. If she's having this problem from day 1 to day 5 of her period and it dislodges, I would maybe ask to see if she's perhaps got a slight prolapse going on, because that prolapse can actually dislodge things, especially if you're exercising, because
the impact.
Exactly, yeah. So, and if she's doing sit-ups or burpees or anything like this, the impact of the abdominal sort of pounding on, yeah. She could also be a little lax in the vaginal area. So again, did she have any children? Was it a complicated birth? Did she have any stitches of the perineum? Was there a 3rd or 4th degree tear? Because all these can have an impact on retaining the pessary, the cup properly. So again, I'd go back and sort of ask this lady the full history. Let's get to know the root cause of why it's dislodging. If she comes back and says, yeah, you know, I am quite lax down there, that could be the reason, because then what she needs to do then is probably the program I've been following with you, your booty program, which is great for strengthening the pelvic floor and the vaginal muscles, all those muscles, because you're starting with your glutes and your abdominals. So again, certain women that end up going just for running, the running may not be enough for their pelvic floor, so they may need that extra sort of pelvic floor training.
Yes. Do you think for her going up a size of the cup might help?
Could be. No reason why she shouldn't go up a size. Again, we're all different, and one size does not fit all, that's for sure.
Yeah. And on that point, if you haven't joined our Facebook group, Revive Your Pelvic Floor and Core with Kathi and Kelly on Facebook, then please go and join right now. Gaynor, I've got one more question here from a lady, and she was concerned about the pelvic floor muscles, if the cup in any way would interfere with her pelvic floor muscles or would implicate pelvic floor muscle condition.
It shouldn't, but what I would say is maybe if a pelvic floor is a little bit over tight, hypertonic pelvic floors, for instance, don't forget that muscles have memories. So if you've got something inside the vagina and your pelvic floor is already very tight, from your brain, where you're not even thinking about it, but your brain is sort of giving messages all the way down your spinal cord with all the nerve endings and the neurons, and they're going, hang on a minute, there's something in the vagina there. So what can happen is that with a tight pelvic floor, it senses that there's something there, so it tends to grip onto it even tighter. Now that can cause over tightness. So again, if you've got a hypertonic pelvic floor, I would probably go for myofascial release massage, get that pelvic floor to a relaxed state before starting to use cups or tampons.
Yeah, I always say that these reactions when the pelvic floor muscles tighten or even spasm or become painful as a reaction to pelvic floor exercises or cup use, even sex, it's a protective reaction from the body. It's the body's way of telling us that, hey, I need some help. just go and get help, because I am tensioning up here, and it's not because, there was something wrong with the cup or there was something wrong with pelvic floor exercises. It's because there is something that exists already in the area, and now it's been triggered. So it's telling us to do something and take action and resolve the unnatural tone of the muscles. Well, look, that's all the questions I had for you. It's been absolutely enlightening. I thought I knew a lot about cups, but I just got enriched with a whole lot more information. So thank you very much. And I was planning to ask you if you could do another interview on lubricants, because that's another whole big area of mystery for a lot of women. Coconut oil, all sorts of things, olive oil, oil-based, water-based. What's for what? Is it for everybody? So if you're up for it, then let's do another interview on that.
Brilliant. I'm looking forward to that, because I've actually done some research into them, and I've had some fantastic training by one of the top people, lubricant experts. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, me too. Thank you so very much for generously sharing your knowledge and your wisdom. It's really appreciated, and I hope that we do our next interview soon.
Lovely. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Bye.
Bye.